So, a nice calm video. Making a response video, an official response video to Dear Nick. Yes, that's right. One of my favorite YouTube personalities, Nick. Yes, we've gotten past our little troubled waters for now. And, okay, on the free will stuff. And I think we've killed the subject for this week, maybe. I don't know. You know, in terms of this free part, just get rid of the free parts. Let's just deal with the will part. Because even just talking about that, it makes the fact that it's not free pretty obvious. You know, our will is, you know, it's made up of this conflict that exists between us. We come up with a I want statement, for example, floats up, and then we have a discussion about how we get what we want. And that discussion is going to involve what we understand the rules of life to be. And that's where the intelligence comes in. And that's where we get the things like character and the rest of it, you know, as human beings. Because it's through that process of negotiation where the desire has to negotiate with the intelligence to get through to the actual do and grab. The do and grab isn't going to happen if the intelligence is not compliant. If it's going to say no, it's got the veto. It might not be really good at inspiring us to do something, but it is really good at preventing us from doing something. I mean, it's pretty good at doing the veto thing if we program it with enough rules. And that's really all it is. It's just rules. You know, we mentally make rules. And we call them principles or ideals or whatever, and they define us because it's how strong those rules are, and how reliably and dependably we, you know, look for them, allow them to be awake, you know, because that's the thing, we try to sneak things by our brain, you know, we try to sneak by when it's sleeping, the intelligence, and maybe the rules won't see us, and then we'll get away with something. But we know if we think about what we're doing, if we take time to think, if we make that the first rule, think, we know it's going to make a difference. You know if you get into your car and you're thinking, all right, be careful because I'm driving big heavy machine that can squash stuff. You know if that thought's in your head, you'll be a little more cautious, a little less likely to get into trouble. And that's just the way it works. You know, thinking helps. Or the more you think about it, the more chance you have of finding that little rusty ideal that might be stuck, you know, might be eating its lunch. You might find it if you're thinking, and it'll say, oh yeah, I can't do that because it's unethical. It might occur to you. And in some ways we can play with our psychology. You know, it's like I've been trying to quit smoking for years. But I always sort of build rules that is a big cheat. I mean, I could make a rule that was simple. I could say, okay, well, all right, you have to stop smoking. If you smoke another cigarette, you have to pay, like, you know, the Republican Party $1,000. You have to write them a check for $1,000. All right, if I made such a rule, I'd probably quit smoking because I'd really hate the idea of giving the Republicans $1,000. But my sneaky little brain knows, okay, well, you know you're going to break the fucking rule, so you can't make a rule that strict because you know you're going to break the rule. So you're going to, you know, you're just not ready to quit smoking yet, obviously, because you're not ready to set a standard for yourself that's going to make sure you will quit. And that's the catch to all this thing. But I mean, it is psychology, and our intelligence can play an active role in it. We really can let it participate. And it's not going to, like I said, it can't replace a desire, and it can't replace a fear. Okay, it can play on those things. It can make you see the worst case scenario, and so then you'll be even more cautious. And it can make you see best case scenarios, so you'll be more reckless. I mean, it can certainly do that. But if we discipline it, if we're really seriously thinking about how to live, we'll find ways to make our intelligence do or take most of the control over ourselves. We will exercise a great deal of self-control. Interesting concept. We never use those words, self-control, in all these discussions of free will, and it seems a pretty important concept because that's really what it's about. It's about letting your intelligence control the ape, control the asshole. And you know, that's you know, if you look at it that way, I mean, it just becomes obvious what we are. I mean, we're just psychology, damn it, and we just have to play with our psychology. And if we have the right rules, we're not going to have any problem figuring out what the right thing to do is. That's never that mysterious. It's just that the incentives, the fact that we are, we hate the idea of the deprivation. We hate the idea of saying, oh crap, I can't have it. The rules say I can't do it. And so then you're stuck with the pile of nothing. You're stuck with the unsatisfied or the sense of deprivation, and that's no fun. So intelligence definitely takes the fun out of life. When you allow intelligence to be imaginative and all that stuff, when you take the reins off and you say it's time to fantasize and daydream, well, then it's a great asset. But most of the time it's kind of a pain in the ass. It's a bad wife. But it's the only way we can live as civilized humans, is that we have to have a great deal of respect for the intelligence, because that's the game for us. So some people are going to live their life, like I said, they're always going to see their brain as a scheming tool. Its only purpose is going to be to find a better mechanism, better ways to play the game, to undercut the other guy, to get what they want. They're never going to see their intelligence as an instrument of suppression, as something that should control them to make them live a better life by some rational definition of a better life. And I would argue that rationally, there's no way to avoid the simple and the obvious. Rationally, we know that all these other consciousnesses are the same as we are, that their happiness is just as valuable as ours. There's no rational argument that can be made to make anything else make sense there. We know it as a truth. It's unavoidable as a truth. And in that scenario, you have rationally, no obligation, you can't escape the obligation to treat their needs as if they were your own, and to balance which ones are more important, and to end up being rather self-sacrificing. I mean, that's the intellectual imperative. And we're all going to fall short of what we expect in that sense, because we're all, the deprivation is going to get too strong. The self-interest, the self-want is always going to be nagging and harsh and hard to live with. And so that's going to put the limitation on that. But that's the battle here. And that's why I curse nature, because nature creates the selfish beast. Nature prevents us from being all that we can be. I mean, yes, it gives us these feelings, but without any real control, without any capacity to turn them off when they're completely useless to our productive purpose, they're just a horrible nuisance, a horrible get in the way. They're just something to trip over. So anyway, I think that's probably enough. It is hard to figure how, like I said, we can judge other people for falling short, because some of this stuff seems so obvious. I mean, if somebody breaks a fundamental ethical rule, I mean, it takes just a little tiny bit of rationality to know you don't bash some person jogging in the park over the head with a brick to steal $10. It just doesn't take any intelligence whatsoever to understand the wrongness of that behavior. And somebody that broken, we can judge the thing as being horribly broken. I mean, we don't need to be punitive about it. We don't need to be cruel, but it's just a fact. And so there isn't any. There's nothing that requires us to be forgiving. There's nothing that requires us to make excuses for other human beings to be assholes, because they do have the gray matter. They have the capacity to understand the 2 plus 2. And in most cases, if they don't understand it, in 99.99% of the cases, if they don't understand it, it's because their native programming is just so broken that they've decided to throw out all the intelligence. They've decided to just use the brain as an instrument of destruction and nothing else. That's the mission. It is so self-centered and so self-obsessed that there's no way that individual can live in civilization. So, enough of preach. So anyway, thanks, Nick, for, well, whatever. I mean, I shouldn't have to thank you for letting me talk to you, but yeah, it's nice. Had a little extra time, so throw in this little add-on. Post a link to a Do Not God video. That's me. Response video to be serious, and the comments are already getting kind of funny. I don't know if I'll participate any further, but whatever. I mean, people.